Hello.
Wait, can you hear us? Hello, everybody, and welcome to the FloTrack podcast, Paris edition, presented by Wonderful Pistachios. I'm Livik Pone, joined with Corey Ma, and we have a very special guest joining us. We have Leo Manzano, who's a 2012 silver medalist in the 1500 meters. We are so happy to have you. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Livik. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, we are super stoked. Of course, today is August 2nd, which marks the first official full day of track events, which were inside that beautiful stadium of Stade de France. So let's go ahead and just dive into everything. We are just coming off of the track. We were just watching on the big screen the men's 10K final, and we're just screaming and shouting, and all of a sudden the final 150, we got on our feet, and the whole entire top floor of Flow Sports was just going wild. So let's kind of break this down.
Well, Leo, if you're an American track fan, what, first of all, you know both sides, but what is the feeling like, I think, when you see something that momentous happen on the ground? Grant Fisher getting a bronze medal in the 10K.
Well, let's just say it's not an everyday thing, right? So for that to happen, I mean, it's literally all the stars have to align, and you have to think about just the years of preparation to get there, but not even just the preparation, but the day in, the day out, and then also making sure that these people, because they're probably running anywhere from 100, 120 miles a week. And so if anything happens within those miles, I mean, that could be like a twisted ankle or any type of injury could put you out. So being here and for Grant Fisher, that was huge.
Right. What were just kind of your thoughts? I know we were all watching it together. So from when the gun went off to crossing that finish line, were you expecting the paces? Because we were all trying to figure out the splits, and at one point it was unfair that at one point it got really, really slow, and then all of a sudden moves were just being made? So
Yeah.
from your perspective, like, did you kind of expect that final to turn out the way it did?
Yeah, so from my perspective, from my experience, that's actually pretty natural. It's very natural for runners to do that. So they want to do this kind of push and pull type of motion, and what they're doing is they're pretty much just tiring out the athletes. So they do change of pace, and they make the pace either hotter or colder, kind of depending on where they're at, and then depending on who's stronger, it's kind of like the last man standing type of thing.
Yeah. Corey, what were you thinking? Because
I mean,
it was just insane.
So 26:43 for Grant Fisher, I think, is just about 10 seconds off of his personal best overall. But this is an Olympic final. You got to race the Olympic final. You're not thinking about just running for time here. And, I did, we got splits on the television and we were seeing them in real time. You're talking about the push and pull kind of method. They got as slow as 69 seconds on one of those laps.
Right.
So when you're an athlete, feeling that race come back, it's got to be so hard to then kick it back into gear. I give credit to Grant Fisher and his training, whatever he's doing, to be right there and keep contact with a group that was trying to lose him. I mean, I can't believe how hard that must have been for him, but the man was ready to go, and this is an epic moment for American distance running.
Yeah, absolutely. So Grant Fisher comes in with the bronze medal, 26:43, as Corey mentioned, season's best. But Josh Cheptegei, Olympic record with 26:43.14, and then Baru Aguayi, 26:43.44 for the silver medal. And gosh, it was just so unbelievable to just witness that and just see how it just unfolded. And I want to give kudos to Nico Young, because we're like, Nico is sticking in this front pack right now. Like, were you impressed with Young's performance?
I mean, absolutely, right? But you also got to think about it. Like, you have to be as patient as you can, and being the 10K, being that race so long, you have to, and so I do have to hand it to both of those gentlemen, especially Grant Fisher, because there was a couple of times that he got nudged and I thought he was going to go down.
Yes.
But he kept his composure. So, and then it's like the next thing you know, they're closing in about 55 seconds.
Goodness. Like, Grant Fisher got bumped. He tripped on the rail like once or twice. There was definitely one where they had it in slow motion of like him hitting the rail, and we're just like embracing impact. I was like, Grant, just stay on your feet. But with Leo, I want to ask you this question. Like, how do you just mentally stay engaged when they're so bunched up like that, you're hitting the rail, elbows were being flown. Like, there were moments where the Ethiopians were like talking to each other too. Like, how do you just stay engaged with what is going on so you just don't trip over anybody?
No, absolutely. So I think there's two things that come to mind, and one of them is practice, because you're going to practice these type of pace changes in your workouts and in day out. So the goal, I'm assuming that the goal for him would be for this not to be super foreign, but then also experience, right? Because when you start racing the best of the best in the world, it can get a little bumpy. And when I'm talking about bumpy, I mean there's elbows. I mean sometimes like there's spikes. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it is accidental, but you'll see guys with just like torn up shins.
Yes. Woody Kincaid, 16th. I'm proud of the Americans.
I will.
Today, yeah.
I do want to comment on just how big this is in American distance running. It's just we're not usually in the mix as much. I mean, that obviously. You pushed us forward in 2012. Galen Rupp pushed us forward in the 10K, finishing with the silver there. Billy Mills won in 1964. Like, we don't have these opportunities very often from Americans to have an opportunity to win medals. So when it does happen, I think it helps. I think build the sport in the U.S. To all those young people listening and watching, it also helps them kind of want to inspire them toward greater heights too. So this is a momentous moment.
Yeah, so amazing. Any other thoughts around this 10K? Because it was just incredible.
I have no words.
No words. I'm kind of left speechless too. Like,
wow.
I was just cheering. We were all cheering, and then it hit me. I was like, wow. Look at Grant Fisher.
Yeah, and just looking at it, I honestly thought he was going to take the silver. He was coming in so strong.
Yeah.
And just looking at, again, going back to remembering his composure as he was coming in, I really did think he was going to take silver, but he just got clipped at the end.
Yeah.
Just a comment on Nico, as you brought up. I mean, 12th in this race. He's had a long season for NAU. He's been racing since cross country, indoor. Like, this has been a really long season for him, and to end in August with a 12th place finish, I think gives him a lot of, I think, opportunity looking forward, right? He can be ambitious in the next 4 years, where he could potentially be in the mix here because he's proven himself here on the stage.
1000%. Like I said, I'm super proud of how the Americans just competed here today in this 10K. Just absolutely incredible. Let's go ahead and dive into the notable moments from today. And I actually want to start with the 15.
Okay.
Let's start there. It was the first round for the men. And Leo, I want to ask you this question. The repechage rounds, this is new to the games.
Yes.
Just what are your thoughts about it?
I think it is quite interesting, and I think it's going to give the Olympics a new dynamic. And it could also give people that potentially deserve to be in the final or a semifinal another opportunity. To me, it is quite strange because I never had those opportunities, and I'm assuming you see people fall, you see people, sometimes things happen, and sometimes you wish for these athletes that they had another opportunity, and in the past that just wasn't the case.
Right. I'm gonna mention it a little bit later, but definitely someone in the women's 800 meters is taking full advantage of that. But here we have Ollie Hoare from Australia and Mario Garcia from Spain will be able to take advantage of these rounds. So it's another opportunity, Leo, as you mentioned, to get out there, compete, and try one last time. What do we think about Yard Nagoose, Cole Hawker? How do we feel about the Americans from today?
Yeah, I think there was more urgency today racing 1,500 meters. You saw times were a little bit faster across the board. The stadium was packed.
Yes.
First day of track and field, the stadium is absolutely packed. So there's an environment there. There's a stage that's just big. I think there were fast times. They got the job done.
Right.
Regardless of how it happened, they got the job done. And I think that's what matters ultimately, right?
Absolutely. I mean, really, if I think that if there was any rounds that are probably the most stressful, it's probably the first round. And it usually is. It comes down to experience and inexperience too, because a lot of the experienced guys, at least from my from being at these world championships, is that a lot of guys are actually, when they come in, they're inexperienced, so they don't exactly know how to run. So these guys are sometimes tend to bump or push a little bit more. Where you have your experienced guys, they already know what they're doing, so they actually just have to watch out for the inexperienced guys and just got to make sure that they can make the next round.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ollie Hoare, I do want to mention, you mentioned he's going in the repechage round. He's run 3:31 this season twice. I mean, he didn't have a race that he probably envisioned. I think 3:39 here, he was out of the fact, didn't factor in at all. But he's a guy I would watch in the repechage rounds to push through because he is probably super capable of doing that. And I also wanted to ask you, Leo, about this rivalry with Ingebrigtsen
Yes,
and
can we
Kerr.
talk about that?
Wait. Today, there was a headline that came out from Ingebrigtsen's countryman, Nordas. He apparently told Kerr, "Beat my countryman." Like, what is happening here where these two guys really have this dislike of one another, whether real or not? I don't know. It's something.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it definitely gives a little bit of fire to the sport and it does make it interesting, even though you kind of hate to see that type of rivalry or that type of what I'm going to say maybe some mild hate.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, right, it is kind of like sometimes having that little spice is kind of what attracts people to the sport. But ultimately, it's always shown, hey, what happens the day of the race, and that's where things are either really shown.
Mm-hmm. Also, we have Jakob Ingebrigtsen making it into the finals. He did say while he was in the mix zone that he was wearing a mask because he was telling the media, "I'm extremely scared of getting sick." I remember during Worlds last year, he talked about how he was battling through an illness. So
It's precautions.
yeah.
I think that's actually really fair. I mean, especially being at the top of your game at the Olympics, which is the epitome of track and field or almost pretty much any sport. And so as an athlete, you want to be careful or make sure you cross your T's and dot your I's as much as you can.
Yes. Leo, I want to talk. I know this was the very first round of the 1500, but from your perspective, what is something that we should be looking for from these athletes, these very first rounds? Obviously, we're just trying to get through, but is this a round where you're trying to shake the cobwebs out? Are you getting the nerves out? What are these athletes thinking through this first round?
From my perspective, and just past experience, the first round is always probably the most nerve-wracking because it's, again, going back to the inexperienced runners versus the experienced runners. But now as you move forward, I think a lot of these athletes have already shaken up those cobwebs, as you just said, and now they get to have fun. Like now it's like, hey, let's go out and kind of show, just the raw talent and work that we've done throughout the year. And then it's like, but I'm also assuming they're probably not going to show everything that they've, they're not going to show all their cards. They're going to just kind of show what they need to do to make it into the final. And once the final comes around, that's going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
Which brings up, I think, your experience in 2012. I have your times from then. 337 first round, 342 semifinal, 334 obviously in the final. But speaking to that semifinal where you're not going to show all your cards, obviously it could be more tactical out of these guys. How would you envision that taking place for the field that wants to get into the final?
So what I'm going to say is that as you kind of go through the rounds, like a lot of these athletes, they train for the rounds. They don't actually just train for one specific race, because I'm assuming that in their training they have to be strong enough. So they're probably doing different types of work to be able to make it through the rounds. And from my experience, I always wanted to be faster and stronger as I went through the rounds. So usually what happens is a lot of the inexperienced runners will start weeding out. And then that's when you really get to see the experienced runners and the guys that are really meant to be there in that second round.
My question to you, do you approach rounds different? Like just thinking about the U.S. trials, did you approach those rounds separately, the same, like when it came to Olympics versus USA trials, or did you approach them the same exact way?
You do approach it in a very similar way, but you also know that the level of competition is way higher at the Olympics. And not only that, at the Olympic trials, you're buying for a spot to be on the Olympic team, which is still, there's a lot of pressure there. But when you're at the Olympics, and if you've already been to the Olympics before, and then the next step is to win a medal, that's the next step. And if you can win a medal, I mean, that can literally change your life.
Speaking of medals, Court, go ahead.
Well, I want to get your thoughts on the Americans that are going through the semifinal. We had Cole Hawker, Nagus, as we mentioned, Hobbs Kessler. They all ran 335, 336. What do you think our chances are with our three men?
I think there's a good opportunity to finish in the top three. I mean, just watching Jared Nagus and also watching Hobbs Kessler and Hawker as well. I mean, even just going back to if people get a chance, they have to go back and watch the Olympic trials and just how Cole Hawker came. I mean, he made this insane move with 200 something meters to go, and from my perspective, all he has to do is kind of bring that same might into the Olympics, and possibilities are going to be pretty good for him, I think.
Okay, what do you think it's going to take to get gold?
From past experiences and just watching, I mean, I think it'll definitely be. It could turn for sure. It's going to be, from my perspective, 330 or better, 329. I mean, I could even see if these two guys, I'm thinking about Josh Kerr and Jakob Ingebrigtsen, I mean, they could potentially even take it down to 326, 327. I know that sounds out there.
Oh, no. Leo, we made predictions like 2 shows ago. I said 325, like 58. I'm going for world record here at the Olympics.
There is something that happens at the Olympics. I mean, we've seen this time and time again. I mean, we even saw this in I remember even back in 2012 in the 800 meters when these guys were running, previously, if you were running 144, that was insane. But all of a sudden they're running like 141s, and it's like, but what's changed? Well, the level of competition, and it's the Olympics. So there's potentially some Olympic magic there.
I'm going to put you on the spot. I know we were talking about this a little bit earlier, but I'm going to have the fans want to know, who do you think, from your perspective, who are our podium finishers? How do you see it shaking out?
I'm gonna probably get a lot of flack for this, but it's okay.
It's
Everybody's allowed.
okay.
Everybody's allowed to have their own opinion.
Exactly.
I think it would be Josh Kerr, number 1, Jakob Ingebrigtsen, and Cole Hawker, 2 and 3.
Oh, didn't you have Cole Hawker?
No, I'm a Ingebrigtsen guy.
Okay.
I'm going Ingebrigtsen, Kerr, and then Nagus. I said Nagus.
Okay, you said Nagus third?
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like Josh Kerr is just. I feel like Josh Kerr is just going to run away with this one.
Run away.
Yeah.
He's not going to run away with
I think he's going to run away.
He's not going to run away with it.
Jakob Ingebrigtsen, and then I think I'm going to put Cole Hawker third for me.
Yeah, I mean, I just watching Josh Kerr, the way that he ran when he did compete against Jakob Ingebrigtsen, and the way I thought that move, I believe that was at Prefontaine. Yeah, I thought that move that he did was beyond.
Yeah.
I almost initially I actually thought it was potentially beyond himself, and I did think that he was going to get caught, but he demonstrated that he didn't. Yeah. Right, and now that was insane. Like, and so if he can pull something like, I'm not saying that he is going to, but if he already has the ability, he has the capacity, and I think he could do it again.
All right. Well, we'll have to wait and see. We're going to clip this part out of our podcast. So, and we're going to figure out who is the closest person. All right. Let's go ahead and talk about kind of the unpredictable performances that we kind of were not expecting. Let's start with the USA national champion, Daniel Ho, who did not qualify for the final in the hammer. He actually fouled out all of the throws. And this was a guy that finished 6th in 2022 and 2023 for the world championships in this event. Like, my heart breaks because you never want to see someone just completely foul out like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you get to this stage and you want to perform at your peak physical ability. And, sometimes it just doesn't work out like that in the field, especially because you are limited by the functions of your event, right? Being in the sector in terms of the hammer here for Ha. Rudy Winkler was in the mixed zone yesterday, and he talked a little bit about his first time in the Olympics and how he let the environment get to him. And here he didn't do that, right? I mean, so experience taught him how to enter into this scenario in a different lens. And I think just a learning moment here. He didn't get in the sector. It happens in the field events. It's just a brutal pill to swallow.
Yeah, it really is.
No, absolutely. I think one of the things that happens is the stars sometimes do have to align. Of course, you have to do the work, you have to show up, but sometimes the stars also have to align, right? And there's in the background, right? There's a lot of things happening. I mean, sometimes it's not just the competition. Sometimes, and earlier on, I did want to hand it to all the coaches, right? Because a lot of the coaches are managing these athletes as well. And so it's a lot of the times too, it's having a really good coach definitely affects the way that the athletes are performing.
Another athlete who narrowly avoids catastrophe in the high jump is Vashti Cunningham. Ties for 12th, 1.92 meters. Rachel Glenn misses the final with a 188 clearance for 15th. I was able to kind of watch Rachel and over the last couple of months, and I think we had an interview with her too, and so it was just her saying it was tough. It's been a very long season. She competed at Arkansas, so everything was just a really long season, as you mentioned with Nico. To just kind of stay intact with that is always challenging. But Corey, what are your thoughts with Vashti's performance and just how the high jump kind of unfolded?
So Vashti's 26 right now. She was high jumping at the world level at 17.
Yes.
So she's been in it for essentially 9 years. She's been the top of the U.S. for that amount of time too. And now we're only really beginning to see how some of this is impacting, I think, her on the stage. She's, what she's talking about, it feels like she's looking at competition in a different lens than she used to before. Her quotes from yesterday, it's not easy to be at this level, especially starting so young to being here. I keep hearing you're not old, but I feel old. And I know I'm not old, but it's man, it's just not the same when I was younger. And I was so dumb going into it. It's so calculated now and so much pressure.
Yeah, I was just about to say
so
that.
to hear that from somebody on the stage is kind of a little concerning. You get to the final, but how do you move in the final after you struggle in the rounds here, right? How do you get back to that, I guess, is my question.
Yeah, that's a great question. Leo, do you have any insight to that? How do you just bounce back from maybe not having your best performance and just continuing moving forward?
Yeah, I feel like there's so much that goes into it, right? I mean, it's not just those performances, right? I mean, there's sometimes there's things with family, everything with your family has to be good. The training has to go right. It can go as deep as you want it to go, right? But the way, I mean, ultimately, right, you always have to bring it back to enjoying the sport.
Yeah.
And being, I mean, I was a runner for almost 27 years, 11 of those years professional. And every year it was like I had a kind of, it was like a promise with myself that I would bring it back to just having fun. And if I didn't do that, I mean, I was always in some turmoil. But once I always reminded myself, hey, let's just have fun with it. It's just another race, and you have to keep it fun. You have to keep it light, because if not, the other thing happens.
I think it's really crazy to think like she is 26 years old. I feel like she's so much older than that, because like you said, she's just been on the scene for so long, and it's like, wow. And I can only imagine the pressure that just comes along with it when you're coming out of, high school, and you're just like this dominant person, and you're going through the cycles of world championships and Olympics. It's like she has been the face of USA high jump for such a long time, and to kind of keep up with those standards definitely adds a little bit more pressure.
Well, the beautiful part about it is she has qualified for the final.
Yes.
So you can reset, and you can go into the high jump final with a different mindset. That's always the beautiful part about track. You get other opportunities. And as you said, I think you just sort of have to remember why you're doing it in the first place. Get back to that love, get back to that funness, and try to avoid sort of the slippery habit of thinking about the pressure or expectations or things like that.
Love it.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to some sprints here, because, of course, we have to have a show where we talk about either Noah Lyles or Sha'Carri Richardson. So Sha'Carri Richardson making her Olympic debut in the 100, cruised to a 10:94 to be the fourth fastest woman from the heats. Marie-Jose Toulouse-Smith had the fastest time with a 10:87 season's best, followed by the Jamaican Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price with a 10:92. Daryl Netta, 10:92 for his season's best, Richardson. And then our girl, Julian Alfred, 10:95 for fifth. The other Americans, Melissa Jefferson was seventh, and TT Terry clocking in 11:15 for 22, but all the Americans make their way through, including Dina Asher-Smith. So, Leo, I'm going to pass it off to you. What do you think about our girl Sha'Carri Richardson and just how she is going to be in this 100?
I think she's awesome. I mean, just watching her today, she made it look so easy. I mean, it seemed like she had at least 2 to 3 meters on everybody, and she just pulled back, just allowing herself just to coast through, which is great, right? Because that also messes with the competition just a little bit.
I feel like because she was in some of the earlier heats, it was kind of putting the tone out there, because she literally put on the brakes to show a 10:94, and I wonder if it kind of told people like, hey, I'm ready to go, and I think there were lots of like sub 11s, which honestly I wasn't really prepared for. I was thinking like 11 flat, but like to hit that 10:94, and then everyone else is kind of like, ooh, maybe I should speed up a little bit.
Beautiful track, by the way.
Beautiful,
absolute beautiful track.
Gorgeous.
And from what we're hearing, it's very fast too.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty much an awesome display from all the ladies who we expected to get through to the semifinals. There were really no surprises on my end at all through the first round, and credit goes to the Star Athletics girls who really crushed it and really did well in their heats. Expectations are that I think those three get to the finals. Yeah. So they looked really good. I think looking at it, one actually surprised.
I was going to ask you, there was an interesting runner in one of the heats.
From Canada, Audrey Leduc. She set a new Canadian national record, 10:95. And she's been on fire over the last couple of months. She actually went out to Edwin Moses in May, set a 200-meter national record for Canada, 22.36. So she's kind of a surprising athlete that I think that you have to be wary of, basically, because she could potentially drop this time, run even faster. She's in the mix based on what she did in the first round.
Yeah, but there's also another athlete, too. Really interesting.
Well, okay.
Can you just share it? Because I'm all for it. I was like, this is so unique.
Okay, so there was 100-meter qualifying rounds, mostly consisting of athletes from countries that don't have a lot of representation. There's this new global representation in the game, so athletes from countries like the Solomon Islands are able to select an athlete in a certain event across the Olympics. And Sharon Firiswa, 30 years old, owns a ton of national records for Solomon Islands in the 1,500-meter mile, 3K steeple, 5K, 10K, and marathon. She was hoping to get into the marathon at the Olympics. Did not qualify, but Solomon Islands got one selection they threw her in the 100. She has never run 100 in her life. And she finished in 14:31 in the heats. I mean, send your best athlete to the Olympics. Give her a shot, regardless of where it's at. I think it's a fun story.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
You got to have fun with it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's the Olympics too. So she can also run. Wait, she can't run in the repechage rounds, can she?
No, because they were
That was
qualifying
the
for the first
qualifying.
round.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So, hey, just going for the experience, you know? I think that's quite interesting.
What was the oddest thing you saw in 2012?
Yes.
At all? Do you have any moment or memories, oddest thing you saw?
I'm not gonna say an oddest thing. Well, I did see an odd thing, but I don't.
You don't want to comment on it?
I will lightly comment on it. It was actually because I did race Jakob Ingebrigtsen's brother.
Oh.
And so,
Which one?
Philippe?
Henrik?
No, Henrik.
Okay, Henrik.
Yes. So in the final, he also made the final, and in the final, somebody tore their pants. So that was kind of interesting.
That's tough.
Yeah, that was not to. He's gonna hate me for saying that.
Embarrassing. More embarrassing than anything.
But I think one of the coolest ones. I don't know which athlete it was, but they didn't. Maybe it was one of the Kenyan. Actually, maybe there was like two Kenyan athletes. One of them was a swimmer, and then one of them that taught himself how to throw a javelin. Just by watching YouTube, and like he made a final. And it's like this, like, because in the past, a lot of Kenyan runners, or excuse me, a lot of Kenyan athletes, they're runners and not like throwers.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. All right, Leo, as we switch into the women's 5K, speaking of just doing unique events, Safan Hassan doing the triple 5K, 10K marathon. What are your thoughts on Safan Hassan being curious, as she likes to say, and being adventurous at the Olympic Games in these three events?
Yeah, I just that one's a little bit interesting. Not saying that she can or she can't. I think obviously she's gonna do what she needs to do. She makes it look really easy, right? And I think that's as much as I can say.
Yes.
No comment beyond that. Well, she got through today. 5K looked really good.
5K looks solid. Yeah. We just had her photo out with Faith Kipyegon. They easily qualified in that first heat with a 14:57.56 and then 14:57.65 for Hassan there. And then heat 2, we had Beatrice Chibet, who's the world record holder in the 10K, wins the heat in 15 flat, 73. But great news is all three Americans made it into the finals: Elise Craney, Carissa Schweizer, and Whitney Morgan. So I think that's really fantastic to see all three of them make it in.
Morgan was 5th place at the trials, and she had a little bit of luck go her way with St. Pierre opting out and Valby opting for the 10K. So she got in and obviously validated that she was capable. She spent an extra couple of days at altitude in Utah, deciding not to come early to Paris to experience basically the opening ceremonies because she wanted to give it her best effort overall. And today is validation for that, right?
Yes.
I mean, so it's a great decision. I'm glad to see that she was able to do it.
All right, so we'll have to stay tuned in the files to see how the Americans hold up. Leo, next conversation.
Okay.
This has been
putting me on the spot.
I'm putting you on the spot. Hey, I'm going to take full advantage of you being in the room because I feel like you're unbiased, because Corey and I, we work all the time together, so he already knows where my brain is going.
Okay.
Mixed 4x4. Team USA. We saw a world record go down with Vernon Norwood, Shamir Little, Bryce Dedman, Kaylin Brown, 3:07.41 for Team USA. We had splits of 44:47 for Norwood. Little went 49:32. Dedman 44:17. 49:45 for Brown. Are we surprised by the lineup? Are we surprised by a world record in the first round? Just what are your thoughts?
I'm not surprised. I think that it's kind of expected, right? Because when you're Team USA in the sprint in that type of mixed event, it's kind of more expected that you're going to go out there and you're going to do the best that you can and bring it home. So it's again not surprised but expected. And I also want to hand it to the USATF staff because I know them. I've got an opportunity to work with them for several years in a row, and they're always doing their best to set Team USA up for success.
All right. So I know there's just been so much talk. Like, once we heard this news yesterday that Quincy Wilson was not going to be in that prelim round for this 4x4 mixed relay. Do you think it was, obviously they set a world record, so I want to give kudos to every single athlete, but do you think that was an odd choice to not have him run, especially since we know this kid has gone 44-20?
I think what happens is it was probably a game time decision. I don't know exactly what they were thinking, but I'm assuming that it was a game time decision. And normally it happens. It happens. There's always something that happens behind the scenes that, whether one athlete's not feeling to par, or, things change. And sometimes it's also like a team decision as well. It's not always just about the athlete. And that's the thing. It is about setting up Team USA for success.
Right. I think it's going to be interesting. I don't think this is a hot take, but I think it's going to fall one more time in this final. The Netherlands is another country that has qualified in this event. They did not have Femke Bol, which I'm going to assume, I don't have any inside scoop, but I feel like she might be on this relay. She has been on the relay in the past, but other countries who have qualified are France, Belgium, Jamaica, Poland, Great Britain, and also Italy. So they were able to surpass that 3:08.80 record, which was set by Justin Robinson, Matthew Bowling, Alexis Holmes, and Rosie Effiong. So it's going to be an interesting final, I must say.
They're given one substitution that they can make between the prelim and the final. My bet, I'm Team Quincy. Regardless of what I've said in the past, I am Team Quincy. I think it would be odd if you did not put him in the mixed 4x4 final at this point. I think that's the best possible point to put him in. So I'm Team Quincy there. But I think if you do make this decision, I bet it's between him or Alexis Holmes. That's what I think they would go with. But, I mean, looking at it, Quincy deserves a shot to run in one event. And I think, why bring him to the Olympics at 16 years old if you're not going to give him an opportunity? I understand, like, he's young, he can learn a lot, but give him a shot.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That is what I'm saying. I'm like, he's all the way over there. We know that, like, I remember I was on the track when this kid split 44 seconds, not once, but twice in one day. And this was back in April at Penn Relays. Corey, you were there. And the fact that he came from behind, his team dropped poor Bullis School, dropped the baton twice because they got tripped up, was able to finish. This kid broke the indoor national high school record, broke the outdoor national record. He did it not once, not twice, but 3 times. This kid has been on relays. I'm like, you already know, I'm Team Quincy.
Yeah.
So I'm like, get Quincy on at least this mixed 4x4.
That would be awesome to see him.
Yeah.
I'm kind of more of the perspective that Team USA is going to do what they need to do to win, right? We're looking for medals, right? And I'm not saying that Quincy doesn't deserve it. He definitely deserves to be there. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to come down, it's probably going to be like a member or an athlete decision to see who's going to be on that relay, right? And of course, it would be awesome to see Quincy there, but I don't know if we'll see him there or not.
Yeah. One last interesting nugget from the mixed 4x4. They went into the mixed zone. Afterward, Brian and Ashley are in Paris for us, and Brian was getting the quotes. And John Galt of Let's Run asked Bryce Detman, how do you select the team? He had heard something about a possible race-off, just asked the question to Bryce. And Bryce essentially said, I don't know anything about that. You got to ask the coaches. The coaches might answer you. They might not answer you, and that's understandable, but I don't really know anything about that. And Brian texted me, and he said it was more about how he looked when he was saying that rather than what he was saying. So it was interesting because, the reporters put him in an awkward position to kind of explain what happened, and not a good place to be because Bryce is just out there trying to run.
Right, exactly.
And he's forced to answer a tough question, but it is kind of interesting. So I don't know. Maybe we'll learn more about the selection process, but as of right now,
one of the things that I wanted to note too is as you go into these teams, into these finals, teams actually hold back runners for tactical purposes, right? So we have to know that not just with Team USA, but with other teams as well. So we could see runners that probably haven't competed just yet.
Yeah,
that's very true. So We'll just have to wait and see. But Team USA, if you were listening, we're Team Quincy over here. We love Quincy. And just to even think, like, I feel like he could just just put him first. That's what I'm going to say. Just let him lead off. He can split 44-20, and we'll be all set to go. But let's move on and talk about the women's 800, because I know you were, like, tuning into that. Yes. What was the biggest takeaway from you from just seeing those first rounds?
I'm just going to say Great Britain.
Great Britain. That's all we're going to say. Great Britain.
Yeah. I mean, of course, I want Team USA to win, but I think that Great Britain's bringing in some pretty tough competitors, great runners, some runners that have already had some experience, have already been here. Mm-hmm. So I think they're going to be hard to beat.
Yeah. I think Gemma Reekie looks solid. Keely Hodgkinson everyone looked great. Can we talk about Phoebe Gill real quick? Can we just hone in on the 17-year-old from France? She is the youngest track and field Olympian since 1980 and won the UK championships. She crossed the finish line today in a 1:58.83. Just so incredible just how this talented individual was able to just sneak in there, do what she needed to do. What were your thoughts on Phoebe?
I think her future looks bright. I mean, I think she held it together. There was a point where I thought she may have lost her composure, but she just kept it together, kept strong, and she willed herself to the finish line.
Yeah. Corey, any thoughts on the...
Well, yeah. Leo, I think we graduated college in 2007. This is when she was born.
Wow.
Which is insane to think about. Excuse me. I think I said France. I meant Great Britain. So, again, ties into Great Britain. Mary Mora, again, 1:57.95. The fastest qualifier was actually the Ethiopian Tisgay Dugma, who went 1:57.90. So, again, everyone just doing their thing. I was really impressed by Juliet Whitaker, the American Stanford athlete. She was third in that first heat. And we had a chance, again, Brian's down there grabbing quotes from the individuals, and she's just saying how she's like rooming with her sister Bella, who was getting ready for that mixed 4x4 as well as part of that relay pool, and just being able to soak it in and kind of getting used to running these tactics the way it's supposed to be done, kind of like what you talked about at the beginning of the show. And she's just trying to be very, very patient, which I think is a great thing to be a note of too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I remember watching her race, and I believe she pressed pretty hard with 200 meters to go. She made a great move, but then it was almost that like it was all these other runners were coming to pass her. And again, I thought she was going to be overtaken, but she held it together. She proved me wrong, and she's in the final.
Yeah, in the final.
Or in the semifinal.
Oh, semifinal, correct. Our brains just automatically, we're just like, oh, she'll be in the final. That's what we're striving for. The Nia Akins was second in her heat, right behind Keely Hodgkinson. And then, again, we were talking about this repechage round. Allie Wilson did not have the race that she wanted.
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily go that far. Think about this round in particular, heat 6, there were 7 runners under 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. She ran 1:59, and you look at the other heats, some of these are winning in 2 flat, right? So you get in a bad beat round because everyone's going fast. Right.
She mentioned in her interview with Brian, like she just did not set herself up the way that she wanted. Sure. And of course, she's like, in these moments, she was like, I kind of missed the little cues, but she's happy to have that opportunity, as you mentioned, for those repechage rounds to just get one more chance to make it into that semifinal. So she got 6 in her heat, like you mentioned, 1:59. So again, another opportunity of saving grace.
I think one thing to look out for in the repechage rounds is whether athletes can build momentum.
Yeah.
Going into the semifinal. And, we see this in other sports, right? A low seed in a playoff builds a lot of momentum and then comes in hot. Is there any way you see, Leo, someone building momentum in a repechage round and really going into the semifinal using that to their advantage?
Yes, I think so, but only if they have experience.
Yeah.
And somebody like Ajay Wilson, I think she has that experience. That's somebody that could potentially do that. Now, anybody else, I think it would be pretty tough.
Mm-hmm. Like, how do you approach these repechage rounds? Like, if I'm Allie Wilson, I'm like, hey, I have to now put myself in these certain qualifying spots. Do you put a little bit more gas, more effort into these rounds? Do you feel it out? Like, how would you go about approaching these next steps?
Yes, something that comes to mind, if I were in that position, I would almost feel like it was not to feel this pressure, but it would be like almost between a life or death type of situation. It's like you want to make sure that you finish, top 1 or 2 to make sure that you can make that semifinal.
Yeah.
Right. Ooh, I almost feel like it
You're nervous
feels like
for
a
it?
final. Yeah, because it's like if
It
you
absolutely
don't get out of it.
It's absolutely a final
is
for
it.
everyone in the repechage rounds. They're out,
Yes.
so it is a final for them.
Yeah, it is. That's why I'm like, how do you go about approaching it?
One of the things that when I'm just remembering back when I was racing, anytime that you were in a championship style event, it was always the final, right? Because it is like it could be your last race. So every race is like the final.
Every race is like the final. Absolutely. All right, let's go ahead and talk about some field events. And then, Leo, I want to just ask you a couple questions more about your experience because I'm just so grateful that you're here with us. We also had the women's discus rounds, Val Allman doing Val Allman things through 69.59 meters, the only American to make it into the finals and completely blew everyone away. Any thoughts on Val Allman? Because for me, I'm just like Val Allman doing her stuff.
Yeah, I think she's leading the field for a reason. She's the best discus thrower in the world. She's just kind of going through her P's and Q's right now. And now it's all about going to the final and making sure you win that gold medal.
Absolutely. Any thoughts on Val Allman? Are you a Val Allman fan, like how I am?
Sure. Yes.
She's a fellow Austinite. She's at least a fellow
then I
Austinite.
really need to be a
Yeah.
Val Allman fan.
Yes.
No, I think that's awesome. Anytime an athlete can be that good, but also it's like you always have to make sure to execute no matter what.
Yeah.
Even at that type of final, you're there for a reason. You're there. I mean, it's game time.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure to execute perfectly.
One thing I will say about her is she is supremely consistent. If you look at her season as a whole in the discus, she is really thrown around that 67 to 69 meter mark the entire year. She's been over 70 a couple times at the trials. She won 70.89 meters. But there is no one as consistent as Valerie Allman right now in the world. And I think that's what's going to her advantage right now.
Yeah, for sure. Men's shot put, Leonardo Fabri of Italy is the top qualifier, 21.76 meters. We had the Americans there. Payne Otteral, 21.52. Ryan Krauser, your guy, makes it in, 21.49. Joe Kovacs didn't hit the automatic qualifying distance, but he still got in that top 12, so he is sitting in 7th right now, 21.24. I'm not panicking about Joe Kovacs at all. I'm like,
No.
he's out there doing stuff.
No, absolutely not. No.
All right. How do you I love seeing Krauser and Kovacs compete. I think they always bring out the best in one another. Did you have that one person for you in that 15 that you're like, man, every time we step on the line, we don't know who's going to win, but you always bring the best out of me?
And every step of the way from college to being pro, and usually every year there was somebody that's always there pushing you, whether it's somebody that's like an arch nemesis or somebody that
Who's your arch nemesis?
I'm not going to talk about that. or somebody that's that's always just there, that is that person that brings that the best that you can be, as they say.
Yeah. All right. Final, I guess, group of individuals is the decathlon. Leo.
Yep.
And of Leo over here, leading the way after the very first day of competition with 4,650 points. Damian Warner from Canada is sitting in 4th right now, 4,561 points. Harrison Williams is our top American, sitting in 8th. Heath Baldwin is sitting in 11th. And then Zachary Zemek is sitting in 19th. So, first day is underway.
Yeah, the one athlete who's really shining right now is Skoheim, who's in 4th. He ran a 47 PB in the 400 to finish off the day, and he's been really good in some of the running events. I think he ran 10.2 actually in the 100, which is outrageous for a decathlete. But I would watch him over the final events tomorrow because he could offer something pretty good.
Yes. All right. As we wrap up our show, of course, I have to ask all the final questions with our silver medalist here, Leo Manzano. Can you take us back to making your
Manzano.
yes.
Lasagna.
Manzano.
Can you take us back to when you made your very first Olympic team, and what were some of those emotions that you felt as you're watching now this Paris Olympic Games?
I mean, it was incredible. I was 22 at the time, and it's literally like the world just got opened up for me. It was in Beijing, China, and I mean, I just remember that experience being in China and just those opening ceremony. I mean, that was pretty incredible as well. So I can only imagine any athlete that's that's new to the sport or that has made this Olympic team and just going there and just there's this beautiful energy, right, where everybody comes together, and this just amazing competition in a very light-hearted, good way.
For you, I've had a chance to talk with a few athletes that might have struggled once they were like retired from the sport. They were like, hey, it's hard for me to watch world championships, the Olympics. Did you ever have those kinds of emotions after you finished? Absolutely
not. I've always enjoyed. I mean, I've enjoyed watching track and field. I love the races. I also love watching from the sidelines. On occasion, whether it's a cold cocktail or a drink of some kind, and just sit back, relax, and enjoy the races. I mean, even today when we were watching that 10K, I mean, I was so pumped. So thank God I never went through that. I know that a lot of athletes really do go through that like kind of depression type of thing, and I guess I've been very, very fortunate that I can still at least enjoy it, even if it's from the sideline.
What would you say was your favorite memory off the track while you were at the Olympic Games?
Wow, favorite memory off the track. Oh my goodness, I do think that one of the things that pops up right now is just being at the opening ceremony and when all the athletes, it's not just track and field athletes, but when all the athletes are there together and everybody's taking photos and you're meeting all kinds of people. I mean, from all the NBA stars to all the gymnastics, or just a conglomeration of athletes. I think that was pretty awesome, and that was really special for me.
Speaking of opening ceremonies, I had a chance to talk with Bianca Knight, and I asked her who was that favorite non-track athlete person, like that you were just so excited to meet. She listed all these basketball players. For you, who were you excited to meet from Team USA during the opening ceremony?
Oh, goodness. I mean, there was a few. I'm trying to think.
The dream team was in London, I think.
Yeah,
LeBron actually played. Maybe.
LeBron was there.
Was Kobe there?
LeBron and Kobe were there, and I actually did take photos with them.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes me sad, but
yeah, the late Kobe Bryant. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was pretty awesome, and getting to do that as well. I feel like I was gonna say something else, but I totally just lost it.
Yeah.
It comes.
London had to have been an incredible city to be in for the Olympics, and I think Paris probably mirrors that for a lot of people too. I'm curious. I wanted to ask you how much do you think the sport has changed? Your last race is I think 2018, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, how do you feel like the sport has changed since you got out of it? We talked to Craig Engels in the U.S. In the mixed zone during the U.S. trials, and he said there was a time when like guys were only racing tactical, and now it's like everyone is going hard.
Yep.
Every day, all day, 3:30 or faster to get a chance to get on an Olympic team, which is different than how he kind of grew into the sport. So for you, what are you seeing that's changing?
No, absolutely. I mean, just one of the things that I'm kind of noticing, and I think it may be more and more of a trend, is that a lot of athletes are becoming pro younger, which I'm actually all about. As long as they get compensated in the right way and do it the right way, I'm all about it. But now you're seeing high school athletes that are becoming pro, which is pretty awesome. But not only are they becoming pro, they're also running these incredible times. And so just to put it in perspective, where it used to be people were winning, just say for example, a 3:30 is probably pretty comparable to like a 3:48 mile or so. So it's definitely sub 4 minute miles. And previously, people were winning all these races. If you could run a sub 4 minute mile or just slightly faster, you were probably going to win. Now, like you would be last place.
Isn't that crazy to think about?
Yeah.
And like these high school kids, that's what they're striving for right now, which is unbelievable to think about.
Yeah, like 4 minutes in the mile is actually slow now.
Relatively speaking.
Yeah, relatively speaking, yes.
Yeah, but you're right for sure. I mean, there is a U.S. athlete this year, Josh Hoey. He turned pro, I think, in 2018 out of high school, 2018 out of high school, and right now he's hitting his peak. He's run phenomenally this year. He hit 143 in a European meet recently, but it's been 6 years, right? He kind of went through some of those periods of I really need to challenge myself, getting some races, and probably had some setbacks, but now he's finally seeing it. It's an interesting conversation that you have to have, I think, at that level to turn pro, because there's a lot of positives, but also, there's some drawbacks to it, I would think, right?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is it's got to make sense. It's got to make sense. I think ultimately, if it makes sense for you and your family in a very financial way, then I say go for it. But also if it's like, hey, if it doesn't make sense, I'm like, hey, why don't you just stay in school, finish school, go to college, get your degree, do those things, and then move on.
Yeah.
And now you're giving back to the sport in a different way. Can you just share with us a little bit what you're up to now?
Yeah, so I'm doing a couple things. Been very fortunate, right? So when I did retire from competitive running, it was almost as though like there was this totally new entire world. I went out. I've been kind of trying out all kinds of things. So one of the things that I went and got my athlete management license. So I'm an accreditor. I have my certification as an athlete manager. That's been interesting to be on that side. I also I get to coach now, which is cool. So I never really thought that I'd be coaching. I actually didn't want to coach all these little, I would say these snot-nosed kids, but people grow on you, and it's been really fun. And not only that, but it's also been a really like growing experience for myself. And then I'm also dabbling in the apparel business as well. So
good for you.
Got Leo the Lion shirts.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Very cool.
That is very cool. All right, my final question. Again, it's kind of putting you on the spot, but it's not really doing that much. What event are you looking forward to the most from these Olympic Games?
Oh my God.
And why?
I can't just choose one though.
Okay. You have the floor.
So,
you tell me which events.
I mean, obviously the 100 meters is going to be amazing.
Men
The men's.
I'm actually leaning. I mean, both of them are pretty hot, but I'm leaning more towards the women's.
Okay.
And then the 800 meters is going to be. I mean, that one's always just hot. I'm not going to tell you which one because both of those are pretty awesome. The men's 1500 because that was my bread and butter. And so yeah, I mean, I think those three events, and then I also like sitting back and just watching some swimming too. So, when the time comes.
Ping pong.
You saw ping pong today?
Yeah, Olympic ping pong's crazy.
That gets intense. Yeah, that gets intense.
See, I've been watching rugby. The women's rugby has been awesome.
Yeah,
That was my first time watching.
sevens.
Yeah.
Great TV experience, right? Just
Yeah.
fast running, hitting.
It's everything.
You got some kicking, right? Field goals. Yeah, it's great.
It's been awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Leo, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. It's honestly been such a huge pleasure to have you in studio with us. And you guys, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I know we're live on YouTube, and we're going to be doing this show every single day. If you want more information, want more content, please go to FloTrack.com because we are just uploading articles. Also, check out our social media handles, everything. Instagram, X, the whole shebang, because our team is on the ground giving you guys some content. So thank you guys so much for joining us. And Leo, thank you. And we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, Leo.